Donald Trump has now made more than 13,000 false or misleading claims. That doesn't even count the ones he tells Melania at home. He's averaging an incredible 13.5 false claims per day. That's like a lie per Diet Coke for him. And forget lying. 13,000 is a lot of times to do anything in three. I don't think I've had water 13,000 times in the last 3 years. Although, in fairness to Trump, most of the lies are the same 4 lies over and over again.
The things I had as a goal, I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job. And I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job.
Now, the president also says it will be up to other nations to get their oil from the Strait of Hormuz. In a phone call with Wei Zhejiang yesterday, he said, quote, "If they want oil, come up and grab it. I'm not a gatekeeper for them. They weren't there for us." In an interview with the British outlet The Telegraph, President Trump said he's strongly considering pulling the U.S. out of NATO after allies there declined to help secure the waterway. He called the alliance a paper tiger.
By the way, counting lies makes us sound like nerds, first of all. And second, it doesn't change anyone's mind. I mean, you think, what's the plan? Trump's going to hit 15,000 and suddenly your uncle will say, "Oh, okay, that's enough. I'm for Elizabeth Warren now." It's not going to happen. He lied. It's what he does. He tried telling the truth once, didn't like the way he felt, never did it again. Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, was so concerned about Trump's little arm twist in Iran. He told the senior director for Russian affairs to report it to White House lawyers. Bolton was apparently no fan of Rudy Giuliani's. He reportedly called him a hand grenade that was going to blow everyone up and that he would not be part of whatever drug deal Trump's team was cooking up in Iran. And this is surprising because, I mean, who could have predicted that this guy was unhappy with Trump? I mean, he always looked on so lovingly at him. He gets called resting bitch face. It's like being followed around by a disappointed sheriff from the Old West.
I think he's going to announce that the victory has been achieved, the war is over, and Americans are coming out. I think he's not doing this on anything related to strategic concerns. He's worried about the price of gasoline at the pump in this country and the political ramifications. We have done a lot of damage to Iran. That's all to the good. It has destabilized the regime. Even Marco Rubio said that yesterday. The conditions are moving in the direction of possible regime change. Apparently, we're going to abandon that as an objective, if it ever was an objective. And I think it's going to leave Iran, unfortunately, although badly wounded, in a stronger position. They have shown they can close the Strait of Hormuz. They're cooperating with Russia much more closely than before. Russia's providing them intelligence to target American facilities and personnel. And I think the Chinese will be more than happy to invest in Iranian oil infrastructure if we walk away from this.
It's like the old Senator George Aiken's statement on Vietnam when he suggested for the United States to get out of Vietnam, they should just declare victory and go home. Is that what you think the president is basically doing here, and how much of a victory would it be?
Well, I think he's been preparing for it for a long time. He said some weeks ago, it seems like a long time, but he said something like, "I'll feel it in my bones when it's time to end the war." This is not strategy. Let's be very clear here. This is somebody who's not thinking in long-term American national interests. He's thinking day to day about his political circumstances. And I think the negative effect it will have with all of our allies, and not just in NATO, but our Pacific allies, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, others who buy so much of their oil from the Gulf, and maybe most of all, the Gulf Arabs, who are now, apparently, as we walk away, to be left to deal with Iran on their own. Much smaller countries, now having seen what Iran can do to intimidate the United States, close the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, and dominate traffic in oil. This is going to leave the Gulf Arabs in a terrible quandary.
Yeah, Richard Haas, the president emeritus of the Council on Foreign Relations, called this a we broke it, you own it strategy. To what extent? I mean, the Europeans and the Asian allies, they don't want to own it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Winston Churchill had the word for this. He's scuttling. He's scuttling out of the area. And I think it's the damage done to American credibility, not to mention his credibility, but let's worry about America's credibility for what we ever do on a long-term basis with anybody again, they're going to say, but what about Trump? I mean, the downside for the United States here, if he does this, is just incalculable.
And just before I let you go here, though, to be clear, you do believe that Iran, whatever regime is running the country, is severely weakened. What's their capacity to hurt the United States going forward?
Well, it depends on how long it takes them to resume oil sales and to rebuild. And that's what a wounded regime, it's not replaced, as he has said and as others have said. It's the same regime. It's the same ideology, just different faces. And they will rebuild their nuclear program, and they will rebuild their ballistic missile program, and they will rebuild their terrorist networks, and they do have the capacity to close the Strait of Hormuz. It's in a finite period of time. We've mowed the lawn. That's great, but the lawn's coming back.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for being with us tonight. With us now, retired Army Lieutenant General Karen Gibson. She's a former Director of Intelligence for U.S. Central Command. Also with us, CNN National Security Analyst Beth Sander and Alex Plitzis. Alice, you're right here with me, so let me just start with you. The president said, again, before he announced that he's giving this speech tomorrow night, we don't know if he's going to say we're done. But before that tonight, he said the United States can be finished in the next 2 to 3 weeks. What do you think of that timeline?
So I think it makes sense if we're going to pursue the original objectives that the Pentagon and the White House laid out before we had mission creep with the Straits. So the Pentagon, the CENTCOM commander laid out that we'd taken about 13,000 targets. There's about 3,000 left, about 2 to 3 weeks left of bombing in order to accomplish that. And then the president started making some comments that leads me to believe that we could end up walking away, saying, to the allies, we need you to step up. We need you to take responsibility for it. And then today there was a comment that, hey, going after the nuke stuff might be a little bit dangerous. So I think he's leaving himself room to leave.
General, let me ask you, what options do you think the president is leaving himself here? Supporters of the president always like to say he's unpredictable. He'll say things like, oh, I'm moving troops in there, I'm going to bomb the oil facilities. On the other hand, I want to make a deal and we might leave without the strait being open there. But what options truly exist tonight?
That's a great question. So certainly we've started to see the movement of some elements of ground forces, principally amphibious marine forces, some rapid reaction army elements, as well as some elite special forces units. So there are a variety of things that they could be used for, but it would not be a wholesale invasion of the Republic of Iran. It might be seizing the Karg oil terminal and restricting Iran's ability to use those facilities to raise money. It might be for seizing some of the islands in the Straits of Hormuz, the littoral area. Those are excellent missions for the U.S. Marines. It's what they're designed to do. All of those missions would come with some element of risk, both politically and operationally. The troops would be subject, not just while they're conducting the seizure and seizing that terrain, but for the enduring time that they are occupying it, they would probably still be subject to strikes by the remaining missiles and drones that Iran's been using against extra elements. And that would require the application of other things like a combat air patrol from fighters or intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance, and really tying up a large number of forces for the duration of the time that they are there.
So, Beth, the president said today that regime change has been effected, that there is a new regime, he says. He says the United States is dealing with more rational people. And now he also says that a deal, though, is not necessary. It's irrelevant at this point. How much sense does that make after these 32 days?
Well, I mean, I think Ambassador Bolton pretty much wrapped up that idea of this is obviously not regime change, when you just have different people who have the same ideology. But I think that this whole idea of, where are we right now? Iran does get a vote here. And, one of the things that we're seeing today with the kidnapping of an American journalist in Iraq, with IRGC threats against U.S. businesses in the Gulf, we've had a number of terrorist groups wrapped up in the region, and we've had cyber attacks in the United States. So, Iran can still conduct the asymmetric warfare that they were designed and built to fight. And we should expect them to do that, from the Strait to terrorism to cyber.
Let me be very clear about what we are watching unfold tonight, because I think it is important that we say it plainly. Donald Trump is now claiming that Iran has asked the United States for a ceasefire, and that he will only consider the request after the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. Iran has flatly denied this. Iranian officials called Trump's ceasefire claim false and baseless. So we have the President of the United States making major wartime claims on Truth Social that are immediately contradicted by the other party in a conflict. This is not diplomacy. This is a man managing his own narrative while soldiers die. Now, let's talk about the timeline, because this part is maddening. Foreign policy expert Trita Parsi told Al Jazeera that Trump's timeline should be treated with serious caution, noting that first the administration said the war would be over in 4 days, then 3 weeks, and now we're hearing 2 to 3 weeks again. The timeline just keeps getting extended. Does this pattern sound familiar? It should. It's the same playbook. Promise a quick, clean win, move the goalposts, then spin the failure as a success. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has actually claimed the U.S. has achieved regime change in Iran, even though the country is still ruled by the same repressive Islamic government that has despised the U.S. for decades. Regime change. That's what they're calling it. Iran's supreme leadership remains in place, the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, and gas prices are spiking above $4.50 a gallon for everyday American families. That is not victory. That is a rebranding of defeat.
And what about our allies? Trump lashed out at countries like the United Kingdom, telling them to either buy U.S. fuel or get involved in the war, threatening that the USA won't be there to help you anymore. Meanwhile, Spain said the U.S. could not use jointly operated military bases in this war. Italy denied U.S. bombers use of a Sicilian base. France refused to allow military supply planes to use its airspace, and Poland declined to relocate Patriot defense systems to the region. Our most critical alliances, built over 75 years of diplomacy, are fracturing in real time. Trump has given Iran until April 6th to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to obliterate civilian power plants and possibly water desalination facilities if it does not comply, threatening civilian infrastructure. Legal scholars and human rights organizations have raised the alarm. These threats may constitute war crimes under international law, and yet this administration speaks of them casually, as leverage. 13 U.S. service members have been killed since the war began over a month ago. Iran says more than 1,700 of its people have been killed. These are human beings. These are not abstractions on a Truth Social post. Here is the bottom line. Ending the war with Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz would represent a clear strategic defeat for the United States, and Iran would almost certainly use that position to impose tolls on tankers, generating revenue to rebuild its military and potentially nuclear programs. Donald Trump started a war he didn't plan for, with no coalition, no clear objective, and no exit strategy. And tonight, he wants to give a primetime address to tell America it's going great. Don't believe the spin. Watch what's actually happening.